starting horn and starting line of the Falmouth Road Race, one of the world's premier middle-distance running events with 10,000 runners at the starting line, tens of thousands in prize money at the finish line, and 75,000 spectators along this idyllic seaside route on Cape Cod.
This is the Falmouth Road Race. Good luck, runners! You look great! You're gonna look better in 7 miles!
This event had far humbler beginnings. It started 51 years ago with only 90 runners on a 7-mile pub crawl from Woods Hole to Falmouth Center. That was to benefit a local track team. At today's starting line, only one runner is left from that first race, Dr. Brian Salzberg of the University of Pennsylvania.
The first one was, I still remember, August 15th, 1973. It was August 15th, it was a Wednesday afternoon. It was low 50s, pouring, driving rain, 40-mile-an-hour headwind on Surf Drive.
Wow.
And I figured out about halfway through that you could tuck in behind somebody and draft them. But at first I didn't realize that.
That was your physics background, I guess.
That's right.
Dr. Salzberg is a professor at a distinguished medical school, but he's completed a few Falmouth races against doctors' orders, including one with a brain tumor and another on torn ligaments.
And I did the 7-mile course on crutches in 2008.
Wow.
And as far as I know, I still have the crutch record for the course.
If any participant is poised to match his record, it would be 14-year-old wheelchair athlete Madeline Wilson. We met her at the Health and Wellness Expo before the event, all kinds of products and services on display. But Madeline was much more focused on her upcoming race.
Yeah, this will be my 8th time.
Your 8th time. How is that possible? How old are you?
I'm 14.
So you've been doing this since you were 6 years old.
7.
That's remarkable. And do you look forward to it every year?
Oh, I love this race. It's like my favorite race of the year.
I'm Robert Pease, and this is my Body Odyssey. On the rewards and challenges of the running and racing lifestyle this episode, featuring a much-loved major running event, the Falmouth Road Race, and the optimistic spirit that courses through it.
Good luck, everybody. When's the last time you accomplished so much?
In tribute to his achievement, Dr. Salzberg began his 51st race with the elite professional runners, all long-limbed and leanly muscled, seemingly born to sprint these 7 miles up and down the steep shoreline to cheering crowds at the finish. But then comes wave after wave of non-elite runners crossing the starting line, people of all ages, sizes, and abilities, many with charity groups. We'll meet one charity runner, Carol, a veteran of many marathons, author of a book on running. Carol didn't begin to run until about age 50, a dozen years ago, but it's been mostly downhill ever since, even on the uphills.
And yesterday there was a tornado in East Providence, and here I am running up and down the hills, and the guys that working on the road said, "There's a tornado warning." And then I start hearing the sirens go up. I'm like, oh, no, there ain't. I got to finish my hill work. so I'm just saying, I guess when you get in the zone of running, it makes you feel good. It just feels so good that you just keep on doing it, you know?
You just keep on doing it, like Carol, Brian, Madeline, and thousands of others here at the road race, mile after mile, day after day. Which brings up that age-old nature versus nurture question. Were these and other dedicated runners essentially born to run? Or does the joy of running, the runner's high, or the zone of running that Carol enjoys, does that hook people on the habit of running and bring them together for celebrations of their sport? Like this hugely popular event. Let's bear that question in mind while learning about the evolution of the Falmouth Road Race from one who's been here for every single stride of it, Dr. Brian Salzberg.
The first year was just 92 runners. The winner was a pizza maker from Michigan named Dave Duba, who happened to be on vacation on the Cape. But the third year, they got Frank Shorter to come.
Wow.
So it was a contest between Rogers and Shorter. And that's when we really realized it was going to be a big thing.
And there are certainly things going on in society and the media that are promoting running at that time.
And that was, to a large extent, that was, due to Frank Shorter he'd won the Olympics he won the gold medal in Munich the year before, and so people became, no American had won the Olympic gold medal in the marathon since 1908, I think, and so that was the beginning of the running boom. And then, Rogers, ended up winning 4 Bostons and 4 New Yorks.
Right. So when you ran your first Falmouth Road Race, if I remember correctly, you had not really done a lot of running.
Yeah.
What sort of possessed you to start competing without really a lot of training?
Well, I had a history of heart disease in my family. My father had died quite young, and in 1968 I was a graduate student at Harvard, and Ken Cooper had just published Aerobics, and that was quite a popular running book. And I read that, and I thought I would start doing that. I started running, a mile or two around the streets in Cambridge in 1968, but I never got serious about it.
Yeah.
But in the summer of '73, I got serious. I was a postdoc in Woods Hole, and I had my own lab in Woods Hole for 25 years total. And so it became sort of a natural thing to run the road race every summer when I was here.
And, your background in physiology and in running, do you think that you were, in a sense, kind of born to run in a way that these other people were not? I mean, you've outlived and outrun so many people. Do you think you've worked harder, trained smarter, or do you think you have a lot of innate advantages?
That's a really good question, and I don't know the answer to that. I don't think I have any special ability. I think the nice thing about running, for me, is you get out of it pretty much what you put into it.
Dr. Salzberg initially studied physics prior to specializing in neuroscience, and that's an interesting equation he's proposing there. You get out of running what you put into it. But interesting thing is, Dr. Salzberg did not feel the same benefit from his first aerobic sport.
I tried swimming as an undergraduate in the late 50s, early 60s, and I went to the first practice session. We did an hour of calisthenics, and then we did 20 laps pulling, just with the arms, 20 laps kicking, and 20 laps swimming.
Wow.
And I went back to my room, and I figured I'd just lie down before dinner. I woke up the next morning. And the next day I went out, did the same thing. Same thing happened, and after the third day I said, this is not for me.
Dr. Salzberg's odyssey as a runner has been anything but sleep-inducing. He's completed over 20 marathons in addition to every Falmouth Road Race, both in difficult weather and with various injuries and medical conditions.
I've had, just a slew of injuries. Some of them running related, but most of them not running related, and they always happened away from Falmouth. So they never stopped me from running the Falmouth Road Race.
Interesting. Yeah, it's quite a list. Do you mind giving us that list?
No, it's true. So I had a benign brain tumor in 2003, and my neurosurgeon said, well, if you're going to have a brain tumor, this is the one you want to have. It was a cerebellar angioblastoma, and he said it almost never recurs. And 7 years later, it recurred. Exactly the same tumor in the same place. It was the size of a lemon. And this time he said, yeah, you're not running Falmouth. And I said, I'm running Falmouth. And he said, well, I'll make a deal with you. You can do Falmouth as long as you walk it with a heart rate monitor and you don't let it get over 100. So I said, okay, deal. So I went up the hills and it got over 100, but I did fine. But then the most serious injury I had was I tripped in mid-August in 2008. Tripped at home. I was rushing into the kitchen, and I landed on my arch and sprained 4 or 5 ligaments in my foot. And by then, I think it was 8 days before Falmouth Road Race.
Oh my gosh!
And so I came up to Falmouth, and I knew one of the podiatrists in town who had been a runner, quite a good runner, and he said, well, I know how much it means to you. So he taped up my foot and gave me a pair of crutches.
Wow.
And I did the 7-mile course on Crutches in 2008.
We've been speaking with Dr. Brian Salzberg, who's run the Falmouth Road Race through every possible challenge. We met several other runners with equally unshakable optimism at the Health and Wellness Expo the day before the race. That included Gary, a medical doctor, and his wife Joan. They're celebrating their 40th anniversary, the race they've run together several dozen times.
And my husband proposed to me in front of the Eiffel Tower right before the Paris Marathon 40 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So on the road race, we're celebrating our 40th anniversary.
Wow. And were you running at that time, or was
Yeah.
you stationary for a moment during the proposal?
The sun came out, the Eiffel Tower was there, one move.
Wow. Do you think you were kind of born to run, and you see other people around you, maybe they train hard, maybe they train well, but they just weren't born to run in the same way that you folks are?
Oh, no. You had nothing to do with born that way. Nothing at all.
It's all training?
No, it's not even training. It's just starting it. You know, you start. Whether it's running around a tennis court or out and running around
The
someplace.
neighborhood, running to the beach.
And it's what happens is you enjoy it. And once you enjoy it and you're good at it, it becomes a passion. It has nothing to do with being born that way. Nothing at all.
Carol Crutchfield shares that passion for running. She combines that with compassion for those less fortunate as part of one of the many charity groups at the race.
I'm running for the New England Patriots Charitable Foundation.
And what does that benefit?
Homelessness. We're making coats for the homeless, so when they can't go into Pine Street Inn in the winter, then they'll have a coat that actually makes into a sleeping bag.
That's awesome. So have you run other charitable events for them?
Many. Yes.
And how much money roughly do you expect you might be able to make this weekend?
Well, this time the whole group, there's 21 of us, and we're expected to make around 60,000. So that's just for this run. But, I mean, we run Boston. We ran the Gillette Stadium Marathon back in 2016.
This is Carol's first Falmouth race, but she's well prepared. A military veteran and medical nurse, she also authored the book And They Shall Run, which emphasizes the importance of daily nutrition, sleep, and training for the beginning runner. That attention to detail helped Carol not only finish dozens of marathons, but run right through the finish line of one event for an extra 7 miles.
And I just kept on running, and I was following somebody I thought was with our group. Come to find out, she wasn't with our group, but she was going somewhere. I didn't know where she was going. Finally, I decided I ran far enough, and I stopped and asked somebody which way back to the finish line, and they were all laughing, like, finish line? You mean Boston? You're a little way from Boston.
Yeah, so you have probably, I'm guessing, outrun some of your contemporaries. Do you think that's because of nature, because you're just genetically inclined to be able to run, or do you think it's more nurture?
The main thing is your mind's your worst enemy. You got to get out the door. As soon as you get out the door, that's the best thing you can do. That you got to get through your own head, but I don't feel like doing anything. So you got to make yourself get out the door. And that's the hardest thing. Other than that, most anybody, I shouldn't say anybody, because there's a lot of people that have medical conditions that will stop them from running. But most people can run if they just put one foot in front of the other.
No shortage of challenges Carol has faced in getting out the door to run during her dozen years in the sport, particularly during COVID.
One thing I'll say, though, is my daughter almost died during the coronavirus, and I had to take care of her. And so I took time away from running, so I'm not as fast as I was. So I've been in training for this. It's been a struggle for me this time because, number one, I'm not as young as I used to be, and number two, I had to take time away from running to take care of her, and I had to take care of my grandson at the same time. So the thing is when you don't run for a while, you got to just run. Like you get out there, you walk and you run a little bit, you walk and you run a little bit until you can just keep running. But when you do a race like this, you have them hills, you're going to be running most of the time anyway. That's the way. I don't beat myself up. If I can't race the whole thing, if I get out there, I think that's good. And I think that's most people. They need to just get out there, not be afraid. Like, don't be afraid that you're not as fast as the next guy.
Perhaps the most fearless participants at the Falmouth Road Race are in fact the wheelchair athletes. That's because they are the fastest group out there, navigating this narrow, hilly course past thousands of cheering fans at speeds up to 35 miles an hour. Madeline Wilson is 14 years old, but already a veteran of the sport and the event.
Yeah, so I was born with spina bifida, so basically I have no feeling. My back was never closed when I was born. It didn't close up properly, so now I basically don't feel from my waist down.
Falmouth is Madeline's favorite race. At the expo, we asked her about her most challenging moment at Falmouth so far.
There was one that was a couple of years ago, and there was like a really bad headwind, so it was a little bit tough because I had to get through it and kind of figure out how to strategically get through it. So it was blowing at my face, so it was kind of tough.
Wow, that is tough. And after you finish the race tomorrow, do you get, it's sometimes called the runner's high? Do you get the participant's high where you feel like particularly good after the finish?
Yeah, sometimes. I usually get it before the race because I'm always like energetic, like waiting to go and like kind of like I want to do this. Like, hurry up, let's go.
Very next morning, Madeline did hurry up and go in that race, finishing fourth in 41 minutes over 7 miles. Caught up with her just afterwards in the media tent reserved for elite athletes, and I asked her, with all that pre-race anticipation, was she able to sleep the night before?
I don't know, it was really hard. I did really actually get a lot of sleep because, I feel like I had to like rest up, but then at the same time I was just like so excited.
How are the conditions today? I know a few years ago you were facing a tough wind. How was the wind for you today?
It was all at my back, so it was really, really good. I feel like it was kind of easier, not just for me, but for everybody, because it's just like at your back, so it's not as bad.
Oh, that's great. And any problems on the race today? Any people who got in the way, or any times you weren't feeling that great? Any muscle cramp or strain?
No, some of the parts of the course are a little tough, but that's really not that bad. Like the last hill, I feel like it can be a little tough for anybody because it's just like you've like already done like 6 3/4 of a mile, so it's like a quarter of a mile, just like uphill and then back down and then to the finish line.
We also caught up with Dr. Salzberg just past the finish line of his 51st Falmouth run. I asked him if anything was different about this race, which he ran on an injured foot that's strategically scheduled for surgery just after this year's event.
Every year they have, try something different as far as the start goes. And this year, it was kind of bunched. I didn't like it very much.
I see.
The whole first 3 miles or so, people were really, having trouble passing.
I see. Now you have your foot operation fairly soon.
2 weeks, yeah.
And
then no running probably for 6 months. Slow recovery of slow weight bearing. Once they allow it, I'll start walking on the treadmill. I do a lot of walking, and I probably won't be running until February or March. That'll give me enough time to get ready for next year's Falmouth.
Dr. Brian Salzberg, 81 years young, he's just finished his 51st Falmouth Road Race on a foot requiring surgery and extensive rehab, but he's already marking his calendar around next year's event, as many runners will do. Build their schedules and even their marriage proposals around running and great running events like this one. And that may provide the more nuanced answer to our question of whether nature or nurture creates these dedicated, lifelong runners and racers. Brian, Carolyn, Madeline were very likely not born to run a race in strictly genetic terms, but they've steadily built upon some innate personality traits of tenacity, fearlessness, and love of competition. Keeps them training day after day in all kinds of weather, and which brings them back to this idyllic spot year after year on injured limbs, in wheelchairs, if necessary on crutches, to participate in the Falmouth Road Race.
One's and you accomplished so much.
Special thanks to the organizers of the race and to Treat Public Relations for access to the event this year. If you've not visited this beautiful corner of Cape Cod or witnessed this celebration of running, then mark your calendars, as Dr. Salzberg has already done, for 9 a.m. August 18th, 2024, and the 52nd running of the Falmouth Road Race. Next up on My Body Odyssey, a series on the rewards and challenges of cycling, with particular emphasis on cycling for cancer patients. First up, our visit to the Maine Lighthouse Ride, another idyllic coastal event, this one in Portland, Maine. We rode along with Larry on his 40-mile lighthouse tour. He undertook that in his early 70s, only 3 months after chemo for prostate cancer.
I got to admit, the fourth treatment, the last 30 miles I had on June 29th and 30th were a difficult 30 miles, but I did them 15 a day. And then just last month I rode 255 miles, and then we're into September.
And we'll meet Rebecca, a yoga teacher in Portland who's long loved this ride, but not participated for several years due to COVID and a recurrence of endometrial cancer.
The summer of 2022, I started up on my bicycle again. I got a late start because I had COVID in May, and then I had another health crisis. Completely, well, nothing is separate, right? My body was already compromised from everything else.
We sure hope you'll join us for the Maine Lighthouse Ride episode and our cycling mini-series. But please also consider sharing us with a friend or two and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Many thanks for listening from the whole team here at My Body Odyssey, which is a Fluent Knowledge production. Original music by Ryan Adair Rooney.